Welcome back to the State of Football, everybody. It's September 24th, 2020, your new home for real football talk in the mornings, of course. RIC and the place to be here at the Jersey Shore, joined by my co-host John Murphy. Down in New Orleans, we have the marvelous David Turner out in Phoenix, Arizona, and we are going to dive into a college football zestful of prospects. I hope you guys brought your scuba gear here, and we're going to talk about some prospect watch, some college football matchups of the week. Of course, we got Thursday night football, a battle of Florida that nobody cares about. Dolphins at Jaguars. Get it out early in the season. The Thursday night football, get the Jaguars and Dolphins on prime time at least once. So we'll talk about the young quarterbacks for both Miami. When will Tua start? And Gardner Minshew, is he the real long-term solution, the gun holster in Jacksonville? So with that being said, welcome in, guys. Buckle up. I know you're strapped up, ready to go, and we're going to just get into it here. We're not going to skip all the introductions and all that stuff today and talk about Tennessee at South Kakalaka. The South Carolina Gamecocks are hosting the Tennessee Volunteers, who are ranked number 16th in the country. They come in at a field goal favorite, 3.5 points. This game will be primetime, 7:30 p.m. on the SEC network. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our Jersey strong quarterback there at Tennessee, Jarrett Garantino. He's a redshirt senior already. Trey Smith, who we talked about previously on the show earlier with Russ Landy on Tuesday's edition. So make sure you check that out, and I'll be curious to get David's opinion on Trey Smith with the blood clots in the lungs. Aubrey Solomon, defensive tackle, 5-star recruit, transfer from Michigan, also on that Tennessee roster. And they've got a trio of cornerbacks on our radar, 2 juniors, but also a senior, kind of a nickelback, Sean Schamberger, who we're keeping an eye on here at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. And, he'll have his hands full because Shi Smith is a slot receiver for the Gamecocks. Although I will say here, looking at my notes, the top-rated prospect, I got to say, is J.C. Horn. We love him a lot here at the NFL Draft Bible. We believe he could be a potential first-round pick. But don't forget about his teammate, Israel Mokumamo. And so those are some names that you certainly need to know heading into this matchup, John. Tennessee, a slight favorite on the road at South Carolina. Can the Volunteers get it right? Get it tight?
Well, this is interesting because, first off, it's a national TV game, and Tennessee is ranked. I mean, those are two things you have not really associated with Tennessee and Tennessee football, in a serious period of time. They have the more experienced roster. South Carolina just came out, and chose their quarterback, whereas you mentioned Tennessee knows what they're going with there. Came off an 8-5 season with Jeremy Pruitt. But now it's the same thing. Now there's an expectation for them to play and play well, and these are the type of games, if you're going to end up in the top 20 in the country and you're playing in the SEC, it's a dangerous trip week 1 in South Carolina, but it's a game you have to win at all costs. Doesn't matter how ugly the score might be at the end of the game. You can't come out of this with a loss and then expect to be a top 20 team, because you're going to play 3 or 4 games that are probably not as winnable on your schedule on a yearly basis. So this is a big one, for Tennessee. I think it's a big year for Jeremy Pruitt, to kind of take that next step, get closer to a 10-win season, kind of do what you saw Dan Mullen do with Florida last year, really put themselves back on the map. And if we're finishing the college football season and Tennessee is in the top 20, that'll be, to me, a major step forward for that program, to get back to where they want to be. Because normally, saying top 20, they would have thought that was unacceptable. But right now, they are photo capturing every area that they can where it relates to Tennessee football being in the top 20, because they have done a really good job the past 10 years of being socially distanced from the top 20.
Yes, they have indeed. And, you talk to the players at Tennessee, and they rave about Pruitt. I think he's a pretty good coach, at least appears to be from the outside looking in. I believe that team is bought in, and I believe that it will translate to a Tennessee victory. You know, Garantino has been through the ringer there. You know, he's ridden the highs, the lows, and he's battle tested. And, you know, in terms of an NFL prospect, he's probably an undrafted guy, but he'll be in camp. He's got an arm. He's got size. He's got experience. You know, you start 3 or 4 years there in the SEC, and, you know, you've been through some battles. You've been war tested. And I think, you know, he has a chance to work his way into maybe a late round selection. But, you know, Trey Smith, David, is the big prospect here. You know, there's clear. I mean, in my opinion, he's the top rated guard probably since Quentin Nelson that we've seen. But you talk about not one, but multiple blood clotting issues in the lungs. As an evaluator, as a GM, a decision maker, obviously you've got to dig into the medical, but first reaction, like, can you really invest a top 10 pick in somebody like that?
You have to do the investigation, but off the top of my head, just hearing about it and reading a little bit about it yesterday, I would say no, because, you know, I've had players with blood clots and before, and they have to, usually it's a blood thinning type situation, and, you know, you have to give them rest, and, you know, you got to keep them from too much activity because you don't want the blood clots to just start roaming in the body and stuff. So, you know, in that case, if they're going to pop up and go, you know, the value of a top 10 pick is too valuable to then just, you know, put it on a guy who's going to be in and out of your lineup. And you know that going forward, you know, it's something that where his value might fall. I don't even know if it falls in the first round for me. John can talk about it for him, and other guests that come up, they can talk about for them. But for me, I don't know if he's a first round pick because of the blood clots. He might come off my board as a medical in that case, because, you know, those first round picks are very valuable. First and second round picks to me are just so valuable to build your team around and not miss on those ones. So, and I'm not saying he's a miss on a talent. I think he's just a miss on a medical.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
You know?
No, I agree. I mean, I can't invest a first round pick in a guy like that. I've got the same condition, so I know how scary it is. And
yeah,
you know, first round pick, I couldn't bring myself to do it, and it's unfortunate. And I think the mainstream media glances over that kind of, you know, important piece of information because everybody's just got him as a lock, top 10 pick, first round, no brainer. But, you know, again, the medical, the background all comes into the evaluation part of the grade. Those cornerbacks for Tennessee, you know, Alontae Taylor is a guy who's got long size and is rumored to be, you know, kind of dipping his toes into the early declaration. So keep an eye out on that. And his counterpart, Bryce Thompson, a more of a speedster guy. He's been timed in the 4.4 range. Tight end Nick Muse over on the South Carolina side. Let's not forget about him because while it's not always pretty, he does a little bit of everything well. And when it's got size, Murphy's grinning it.
Hold on now. There's two players for South Carolina. If they win, you're probably going to see them have to step up. If South Carolina makes this the game that I think they possibly can, you got to look at the running back, Kevin Harris, sophomore kid. But he's 5'10", 225 pounds. Last year he had very limited run, but when he did, he made the most of it. And then there's a senior wide receiver in Shea Smith. I think it's Shea or Shy Smith. You know, again, he's not the biggest stature of guy, but he was second on the team last year in receptions. He has 9 touchdowns in his career. I want to say over 1,700 yards. This is a guy that has some playmaking ability. So if South Carolina, you know, ruins the day, I think a big running day from Kevin Harris will be up on the board, and Shea Smith will have some good reception yards and stuff for the Gamecocks. So these are just two players that I think, you know, if they win and they beat this ranked number 14 team, you're going to have to see big numbers come up from the offensive standpoint for them. And then on defense, you're just going to have to see South Carolina play very sound, you know, run to the ball, you know, rally to the ball type defense, a lot of gang tackling, and, you know, keep them in front of you type secondary play to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand in that running game. can really come into maturation for them on the ground, on their offense, and ground and pound this team into a win.
All right, well, I think we all agree it'll be close. I'm going to go with Tennessee here. I think it is a field goal type of matchup, so it should be close to the very end, but we shall see as the SEC kicks off. We've got another good one with Kentucky visiting Auburn. Kentucky with the talented running back there, David, but Auburn, Bo Nix, Seth Williams. Anthony Schwartz is the guy that kind of gets slept on because Seth Williams is such a top, kind of prospect, maybe day 2, potential day 1 guy. But Schwartz is the guy, he could declare, he could, burn some rubber too in his own right. But I forget what the spread is here. Auburn is the favorites by significant points, or I think Kentucky is going to keep this game close because they've got a slew of prospects on the defensive side. 7.5, David Turner. So there's the hook. Who do you like here? Kentucky at Auburn.
I love the defense, like you were saying, that Kentucky has put together. I think they're a very talented defense, and they're going to cause some problems for Auburn. But at the end of the day, I think Auburn's going to pull this one, and it's probably going to cover the spread. I think they just have too much talent right now. They have guys on the from the quarterback that I really like Wilson, and the receiving core to me is really talented. They got a couple junior, senior, redshirt sophomore, so they have some people that have been there for a while. They know the system. They're in tune. They should be in tune, stepping on the field since they've been with each other for a long time. So this isn't a rookie team stepping in here. I think Auburn pulls this one out by maybe 10 points, something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past Kentucky to win this game, John. Obviously Bo Nix has some Heisman hope there going into the season. He's got the weapons to do it. Is this a blowout at Auburn, or is this a close matchup?
I think it's interesting because that you saw last year. They took Bowden, and had to throw him behind center. After losing their quarterback to an injury in a non-conference game. So now at least you get him back, in this setting with their defense and the factor that last year, you didn't get a more, bigger differential in terms of they ran for about 280 yards a game and they threw for about 11. So, they literally had one of the worst passing offenses not only in the SEC, but, pretty much in the country. So if you can even that out, and the one thing Wilson was doing, it didn't always look pretty, and his mechanics are kind of all over the place, but he is an athletic guy that has some tools, doesn't mind taking that deep shot, has a live enough arm. Well, now if they could have a little bit balanced, attack there, the main thing is you got to get Bo Nix out of his game. If you just let him be clean in the pocket, and fine, he's going to make plays. And he has shown you the ability to play poorly for a quarter, a half, 3 quarters, and 10 minutes, and then make a play at the end of the game as a freshman. So I think, that bodes well for Auburn, moving forward. I think Kentucky gives a really good account of himself. I think Auburn's more talented. They're very similar, but I think Auburn has more pure talent, from top to bottom. And this is another one, like we just mentioned. Tennessee, you're now the favorite and expected to win. Here you are again as Auburn in the discussion. You and Florida and LSU and Alabama pretty much all, in the top 10. As soon as you say you're kicking off, all of those teams are back in the top 10. This is a game at home. You can't stub your foot, and lose week 1 to Kentucky and then be in the mix. For Kentucky, it is a game-changing season for you to come in the top 25. You win a game like this, you're going to jump into the teens, and now you have a legitimate shot to say, the Georgia game is more winnable. There's some different things on their schedule, that would kind of align up for them. So this could be a big game for Kentucky in terms of taking that next step, to being considered, a real contender for a better type bowl game than they have in the past. Whereas for Auburn, this is a lot of cards on the table with Bo Nix and where they're headed, right now, as they're expecting to finish here in the top 10, this season. And this would be a very crushing loss at home as the home opener. I think Kentucky continues to show you, that again, Kentucky football, and we're talking about Kentucky and Tennessee both being in the top 25, just shows you what you get to deal with in the SEC pretty much every week, unless you play Vanderbilt.
Well, one matchup inside the matchup, running back Asim Rose for Kentucky, linebacker KJ Britt for Auburn. Keep an eye on that one. A pair of all SEC standouts. All right, moving right along here. We are breaking it down on the state of football, college football preview, bringing you the prospects you need to know. Of course, weekdays, 9 a.m. Eastern. We've got Thursday night football coming up at the end of the show. Make sure you go to NFLDraftBible.com. Log on, get the virtual draft guide, unlock the magic. We've got nearly 300 scouting reports on file that you can get access to right now. And oh, by the way, go all access. We've got a brand new promo, announcing it right here, right now. First time we are announcing this. Subscribe to the NFL Draft Bible All Access. Get a free copy of our good friend Neil Stratton's book, Scout Speak. So it's a bundle. You get the all access membership on NFL Draft Bible. You get a free copy of the Scout Speak book from inside the league. So that's
not autographed.
Well, hey, you know what? If you're like Dan Cassidy in the chat room every day hanging out, maybe you will get a free copy of the autographed copy. So we're happy to announce that. Of course, the state of football is your new home for real football talk in the morning. Never mind all that mainstream fluff and nonsense that you see floating around ESPN, NFL Network. It's just Fugazi, the word of the week that we've been talking about. Don't be an Adam Fugazi. All right, guys, let's go to West Virginia at Oklahoma State. The Cowboys last week kind of flatlined. This so-called explosive offense was grounded by refresh my memory. Tulsa, right? They played Tulsa, and Chuba Hubbard and Tylen Wallace, Dylan Stoner with some drops I saw last week. But that offensive tackle there for Oklahoma State, Tevin Jenkins. I know our guy Ryan Roberts is very high on him. He received the day 2 grade from the NFL teams during the spring. He could catapult himself into the first round conversation. Of course, West Virginia with the Steele brothers over there on the defensive line, Darius and Dante. John, how do you see West Virginia at Oklahoma State playing out?
Well, so West Virginia was already an improving looking club for this year. And you saw last week, 94 out of the 138 yards receiving. Okay, so Trevin Wallace still had himself a good game. But if you would have said to Oklahoma State, you're going to give up 6 sacks, only go 14 out of 21 for about 150 yards passing, Hubbard's going to average under 3.5 a carry against Tulsa. I think you're still happy, with the result, but that's a very dangerous situation now for them to go into, because they will not beat West Virginia playing like that. That they're not going to walk through too many teams, at all playing the way that they did last week, offensively. And I think that's the real question. Can anybody, not named Shane Spencer, play quarterback for them and give them anything? Because, Tulsa was extremely, diligent with keeping contained on Hubbard and basically gave them no respect and said, you can't beat us with a quarterback, no matter who it is, that came in. They had 3 guys at minimum throw passes for them last week, and they were willing to let you try to throw it up to Wallace one-on-one in order to keep Hubbard contained. And again, 27 carries, for 93, 94 yards, 3.4 a carry is not gonna get it done with no big plays, in there. So I think this is a very interesting game, because of what I said. I think, West Virginia already has a win under their belt as well. They have a balanced attack. They're playing with a senior, upperclassman quarterback. That's the Bowling Green transfer, Jared Doak, who makes a good account of himself, in that offense. And the guy that stood out to me in the first game that I watched was they had two different guys in that backfield, but that Sinkfield kid has some wheels to him, and you had two guys go for 100, and so to me, it gives West Virginia, I think, here a really good chance, for an upset. So where I see South Carolina giving a good account of themselves at home, and I think Kentucky gives Auburn a run for their money. I think once again, this time the Cowboys are not going to make it out, with a victory the way they did last week. I think this is an upset for West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're ranked 15th in the country, and all that huffing and puffing that Mike Gundy, all that hot air coming out of those lungs is talking about national championship. We want to play. We've got Heisman Trophy candidates. I'd be upset too if I was the kids. We're going to the college football playoffs, and then, you come out with that performance last week. You better get it right here as a 7.5 point favorite at home against West Virginia. This game will be 3:30 p.m. on ABC. The Kentucky-Auburn game is noon on SEC Network, by the way. This one here, a matinee. David Turner, how do you see West Virginia at Oklahoma State playing out?
I'm falling in line with what John said. This could be a real easy upset. No, I shouldn't say easy, but this could be a really I can see the upset. I can see West Virginia rolling in there with the struggles that Oklahoma State had with their offensive line last week. 6 sacks, and, Hubbard wasn't rolling downhill. They weren't opening up great run lanes for him. If they don't get the trenches right, West Virginia, who has a good defense, who, like you said, has the Stills brothers playing, tough inside in that 34 type roles. They're strong guys. Those are guys who can hold the point of attack. They're guys that have good hand violence to free up and penetrate, changing the line of scrimmage. So, to me, this is, again, like most games with me, obviously, because I'm a traditionalist and I'm a Gettleman guy, is one with the hog malas up front. And, if they're not moving them, they're getting moved. And, West Virginia could come in and start, moving the bodies around with those Stills brothers. I like them a lot. So, and again, John makes a great point. When you look over at the quarterback situation for West Virginia, getting the Bowling Green transfer, who fits really nicely into this offense. And, he spreads the ball around. You could see Oklahoma State, having to go back and eat a nice eat some crow sandwich there about some being up with the top contenders. And I think they have good talent. Like you said, the left tackle, Ryan likes a lot. I like the running back a lot. I think you give him a little crease and he can go. But last week, Tulsa, come on, Tulsa, beat up on them and pretty good, and 6 sacks from Tulsa. I'm not trying to bag on Tulsa, but come on, really? You're Oklahoma State and you're talking all that hot air, like you said, then, those are just numbers you shouldn't be doing when you're playing. Tulsa should be more of a, win by 14, 15 easily, if not more.
Well, we had a few good draft nuggets come out of that Tulsa-Oklahoma State game, so make sure you check out Scouting the Nation, our new weekly feature every Monday on the NFL Draft Bible, bringing you the rises, the sliders, the surprises, and Tulsa, for one, was a big surprise. John, Texas, speaking of blowouts, a game that should be a blowout, could Texas Tech surprise Texas, number 8 Longhorns, an 18-point favorite? I think they won by 25 last year, and this should be a shootout. You got Ellinger and Bowman, the two quarterbacks like to throw it around the field. Texas Tech with the big-bodied receiver there, and Vasher, who comes in over 6'5". Give us a little lowdown here as the Longhorns visit the Red Raiders.
Yeah, so the first week that you saw the Red Raiders, it's a victory, but they beat Houston Baptist. So now, first off, that would not have been a game that would have been on any television network other than the Houston Baptist primetime channel, which none of us subscribe to. However, what you did see in that game is about 1,500 yards of total offense. No one stopped anyone, and that would be very, very concerning. If you're looking for, a place, where somebody can go lose, Texas Tech. Sometimes that trip out there is one that catches, a ranked team, and can be a loss. But I have a hard time understanding how at any point of this game, that Texas will not just drive up and down the field. You saw them in their first game. I mean, they had 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, basically in the first half. So that's where my struggle is, for things in terms of Texas Tech winning the game. However, what I do think you will get out of Texas is we will find a lot more about, can Texas do 2 things: stop people from gaining yards and scoring points on them, like they are Houston Baptist, and secondly, have they taught their guys that it's okay to tackle? So just FYI, if you play defense at the University of Texas, it is okay to tackle the guys on the other side of the ball. Because last year, the aforementioned DBU from the University of Texas gave up about 400 yards per. So you got to kind of work on the fundamentals there. And I know you're not a big fan, or wholeheartedly behind it, but we got to see what Chris Ash, because, Tom Herman is putting the band back together, but I'm not sure that all of his bandmates, know how to play their instruments. So we're going to see how that works out for him, because he's changed coordinators. He's got a senior quarterback. And that all of this with Herman is based off of the same thing as Harbaugh. You got to beat Oklahoma, and you got to get into a scenario where at least be in consideration for us to be saying, whenever we're saying it, November, December, January, or, late Easter when we're playing the national championship, game next year, at least have Texas in the discussion to be in the top 10, or I think Tom Herman starts feeling a little bit of a hot seat here. So if I'm a Texas fan, I want to see this be a blowout. I don't want to see 53-38, because if I do, then I think there's bad things to come in the future when you're playing against real guys. Because the one thing that I think that has kept them at peril is now they have good quarterback play, but you can't stop anybody. And it's ridiculous how bad they were on the back end in terms of the tackling part at linebacker and DB for the University of Texas. It has not been good in recent years. And if it doesn't improve, there's no way that they can maintain their standing.
Yeah, well, definitely ain't the answer. I'll tell you that. Go ahead, David.
No, I was going to say, I agree with John. I mean, the University of Texas, you don't usually get a bunch of tough players out of there. They're pretty soft. And that's just historically. I mean, those players, they might be great athletes, and they put them all together and win football games down there, but they're kind of soft. And you saw it last year with their unwillingness to come up hard and tackle. If you look at this defense still at the University of Texas, you see a lot of sophomores, juniors, transfers. This is not the seasoned senior style, grown men Texas football type players that you get out of them sometimes. So I think their offense will be explosive when you look at the offense and the quarterback and everything. So this could probably be a track meet, and it could be, whoever has the ball last wins, because the Texas defense, again, it's young, and I don't know how tough they are. I don't know if they really want to be Clubber Lang. They kind of
tough.
I don't think they want to be Clubber Lang. I think they would rather be, a Fugazi and look good coming off the bus, but versus, play well when they're on the field. They don't want to be dirty. They don't want to get grimy. They don't want to, train hard. They want to just, look good, get the kisses from the girls and keep it rolling.
Yeah, and I know Herman and Ash were together, I think, at Ohio State, but Chris Ash, I've got, after watching him for, 3 or 4 years, it seemed like 3 or 4 decades, how bad it was. But, again, I know he's supposed to be a great defensive mind. I wouldn't want that guy in my football building if you paid me to take him on my coaching staff. I'm not sure the guy can even walk a straight line without falling over, Chris Ash. So we throw his ashes in the river. That's our college football preview for today. We got John.
So we're saying we talked SEC and we didn't talk about my favorite team. Is that what we're saying? We're doing SEC is that what we're saying?
Well, go ahead, John. You got LSU with 18.5-point favorites against Mississippi, I believe, Mississippi State. So new quarterback, new offensive coordinator, Jamar Chase, their top prospect, not playing this season. So, will they? I know they'll win the game, right? Will they cover the points?
I think the thing that I'm more, and the reason I made mention of it is I think the guy that's the from a standpoint of watching it for the draft, the guy that is really got a chance is how does KJ Costello play? Right? This is a real opportunity, for this guy to be the next SEC quarterback, to put himself on the map early. And I think that'll be really interesting to see. We obviously know they're not going to, have Shelvin in this game, but they do have, a lot of their guys and a lot of their depth back. They're obviously Stingley, is there, and it'll be interesting to see how they use him because, like I said, somewhere along the lines, they're going to pull out that offensive package with that kid, and see him play. But I think the most interesting part of that game, is I don't think Mississippi State's going to, really, that 18.5 could be 30.5, and it wouldn't really matter. But I think it's really how KJ Costello can play in Mike Leach's scheme against a good team, and week one is the starting process of can he be that dark horse quarterback guy, that really moves himself, onto the map. And I think the guy that I'm most excited to see play, because it will be the first time we're getting to see him play, is tight end number 2, Eric Gilbert, is supposedly the next big thing. So minus Jamar Chase might be doing us a favor. And, we get a little look-see at something new, a new wrinkle for their offense. If you put a tight end with the 3 receivers that they have without Jamar Chase, it could be a very interesting and very different look. I think you're still going to see LSU use a lot of different formations and different running backs, to kind of, do what they did last year, but just in a different way, there. But the tight end position, especially as a receiver in that offense, could really take a huge step forward this season because they really do believe that Eric Gilbert is one of the best guys that they've had come through the program at that position in the last 20 years. And if you suddenly get a guy who's a horse at a position you've not had at before, that's an interesting position to defend against at the college level because we see how much struggles teams in the NFL are having covering tight ends. Imagine having a guy with that Darren Waller type body type, that runs a 4.6 at 250 when you have 3 receivers on the outside who run 4.4 or better. But I really think the KJ Costello thing is what stands out to me. I'm looking as forward to that as the ass whipping that they're going to take.
Well, before we get to Costello, suddenly here, LSU producing all these tight ends. I had a couple in the draft last year, and I got another tight end here that I'm just finding out about. So we're all learning here on the fly. Stingley, you get me excited when you start talking about he's going to play some offensive snaps. I get deja vu thinking back to Charles Woodson. We need more of that in my life.
And we all know what happened when Charles Woodson did that, right?
Heisman. Yep. So that'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye on that. Costello is an interesting guy, David, from a standpoint that you can argue Mike Leach has never had as talented quarterback as Costello. And, he had somewhat of a up and down career at Stanford with the injuries. But you talk about a cerebral guy who's going to pick up this air raid attack and literally just dink and dunk his way down the field. I've seen and heard all kinds of grades on KJ Costello. Some think day 2, day 3. Other people think he's just a guy undrafted. Where do you fall on the KJ Costello bandwagon?
I mean, this is one where it's going to help his draft stock playing this year. This is a guy, like you hear, he's all over the map. We need more tape on him to grade him properly. We need to see how his maturation over the summer and everything else is going to play into his draft stock. It's not like he was, a superstar coming in and we know what he's about. And like you were talking about other guys, he's a solid second rounder, could move up to the first. No, this is a guy that could be from the 3rd round, 2nd round to undrafted free agent. So this is really where you need more as a scout. You need more body of work. You need consistency, obviously, from the player. So you can go on the table for him or not. maybe go under the table for him and hide because you don't really want to make an argument for him. It's just, and this is that kind of player. You gotta figure him out, and so it's good that he's playing, and you're gonna have a chance to figure him out. When I've watched him, I think he's a draftable guy. I think he's a guy that is draftable. You'll find him somewhere between 4 and 6 in those range. I don't know if he rises out of that for me. He would have to have a really stellar year. But again, last year, about this time, we were starting to say, who's this Joe Burrow guy? He's looking really good. And then all of a sudden, by the time the season concludes, it's, first pick overall consensus. Everybody loves the guy. Not saying that's going to be, Costello. I'm just saying it's early. It's the first, SEC game. Let's see, week 4, 5, 6. It's not as easy as picking the NFL MVP this year being Russell Wilson. That one was easy even before the kickoff started. But, this one's a little bit harder. You need a little bit more time to cook. As my friend James Kirkland would say, he's not instant coffee. You got to let him percolate a little bit and see what comes out once he's percolated some.
Well, it could happen. So, Mike Leach, KJ Costello, welcome to the SEC. One last one here. We'll touch base on because we did talk about it on yesterday's show. Who, by the way, Lawrence Johnson, 7 City Sports Talk, did a great job previewing some college football games. We also had Emma Ray Dale, the first female in the Canadian Junior Football League, and I forgot to mention we had a Canadian prospect here, the Agbang, because I didn't want to say his name, the Oklahoma State linebacker, Agbang Bemiga, Canadian born there. So we always like to add in the international flair. But, John is predicting a blowout for the Miami Hurricanes, who are getting the Florida State Seminoles coming off a loss, underachieving. And Florida State, we talked about it. They put 30 guys on week 1 NFL rosters, but it's just not translating to the field, David. And Miami there, De'Aaron King, my guy, rebounded back nicely last week with a big game. And, as you can see, Kirk Herbstreit already comparing him to your guy, Russell Wilson. So how do you see this Miami-Florida State matchup unfolding?
Yeah, no, I mean, Kurt's a homer. I mean, when he does stuff like that, it's just like, man, come on, dig into your repertoire and find a real comparison. Don't just take the easy way out, like Ryan said on Twitter this morning. I called it last week. Ryan was saying that Louisville might, be able to out-track me, the U. And I'm like, come on, man. Come on. You're not going to try to tell me that Louisville has more horses than the U. That ain't happening. I mean, that's just not ever. This is never going to happen. That's somebody who hasn't been down to Miami and seen, high school football play, Dade County, high school, heart of it hearts football getting played. I mean, I remember when I worked for the Miami Dolphins in 2002 and I saw the high school football. I'm like, this is like junior college football out in California. Like, holy smokes, these guys are big. They can move. And they're how old? 16? Like, snuckers. So, for me, I just look at it and I'm like, if Florida State, they're playing it without their head coach. He's got COVID, shocker, since he wore his face mask like a bandana week 1 and hasn't really taken it serious. But he's on the bench. And then Miami, I think they got a little juice last week. They got some of that purple drink back in them, and they're gonna be rolling. And I like Florida State. I think in the long haul, I think they're gonna have a good program. As a historic program, I don't like it when they're not good because I really enjoy watching Seminoles play, but they're not the Marvin Jones Seminoles anymore. So I got to go with the Hurricanes here.
All right, well, we bless the Florida State football team. They're in for a heck of a matchup against those Hurricanes. And, we are going to transition into the NFL portion of the show here down the home stretch. The state of football, Ric Serritella, John Murphy, David Turner, breaking it down for the people. And you mentioned the masks before we get into our Thursday night preview, David. Norvell contracting the COVID, and we saw the NFL lay down the hammer, finding NFL head coaches $100,000 fining the teams $250,000. We made light of it a little bit yesterday because the doctor wasn't in the building. So somebody in the kangaroo court.
Oh yeah, I heard you guys.
Somebody in the kangaroo court is going to have a big time party this week with all the fines accumulating. But do you care to weigh in? I think it's a little bit extreme personally, but to your point, Norvell did contract the Rona. So where do you fall on the heavily fined Roger Goodell commissioner laying down the gauntlet?
Well, again, if you look at it, what's the only thing that really can shut down an NFL season? Local governments. If a local government and a local ordinance is not being followed and they could shut down the NFL season and the NFL could say nothing to do about it. So only by doing this can the NFL say to those local governments, hey, we saw the same thing you saw. We fined them heavily. We're trying to correct the behavior. We'll get it right. Don't shut us down. Because if the NFL goes into California where they got enough teams and they're trying to play games, or Seattle, or even here in Arizona where we got hot spots, and they're not following local ordinances, you can see the game get canceled by a local government saying you're not playing this week because you're not following our policies and procedures. And there's not going to be a dang thing the NFL can do about it. Okay, so that's why they're coming. In my opinion, that's why they're coming out so hard on these guys and saying, "Hey, we've done such hard work to get back on the field. We have a lot of money riding on this. Obviously, we've tested everybody. All we're asking you to do is wear a face covering when you're on the sidelines. Like, this shouldn't be this hard. And if you don't want to wear the face covering, go Andy Reid style, put a shield on, and go that way. You're asking these individuals, these men, to just make an adjustment by wearing a face covering, and they can't do it. You can call a play through a face covering. Is it pleasant to be in a face covering for 3 hours? No. But again, I like I told you on the podcast this week, I once flew from Arizona to Baltimore with a 2-hour layover in Dallas. So it was an 8-hour trip, and I had an N95 mask on the entire time. It did not leave my face. Was it comfortable? Was it pleasurable? No. But did I do it for the health of myself and my family? Yes. And again, I know the argument on this panel is everybody's being tested. Everybody's negative. Everybody's getting tested every day. They're all negative. So what's it matter? It matters because it's a government rule, local government rules and guidelines that other businesses aren't able to open. They're not able to perform their normal business. We're all sitting at home and following these rules. The NFL does not get a pass just because they're testing everybody every day. The ordinances are the ordinances for everybody in the area.
Well, thank you, Dr. David Turner, for bringing that unique perspective to the show. Of course, there are 0 positive players or coaches in the league right now. So we will continue to monitor.
Well, 0 that we know of. We just found out Gruden had it last after the Monday night conversation.
Yeah, during the offseason, 0. We do know there's 0 because these guys are being tested every day. Nobody in the league has it currently,
or they're not telling us. Who knows? I mean, it could be fake.
Tested every day.
It could be fake news. Who knows?
Fake news. Okay, there you go. David Turner, John Murphy, Ric Serritella here, breaking it down. Thursday night football on the docket. David, I'll stick with you since you're in such a jubilee mood with your Russell Wilson MVP odds this morning. I got
MVP, baby.
And my guy Kyler Murray's in the top 5 odds. He will continue. You want a good money line pick? There you go. Kyler Murray is going to win the MVP, going to win the NFC West, going to win all the way to the NFC Championship. I might start putting them in the Super Bowl if my Buccaneers don't get it together. Hey, my Raiders are 2-0. My Cardinals are 2-0. We'll dig into some NFL previews and predictions on tomorrow's show. But tonight we have Thursday Night Football in the state of Florida. Miami Dolphins at the Jacksonville Jaguars. David, how do you see this one unfolding?
I don't know, because I got hit on Twitter. Some guy has a high school football game in Texas he wants me to watch. Some kid hit me up. I think might be watching that game. It might be more interesting than this one. For me, I think both teams have interesting, storylines. But for me to tune in and watch the whole game, I think it's just going to be ugly. I don't really see it obviously. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the mustache because he's having a great first 2 games. But like anything in the NFL, when NFL defensive coordinators get 2-3 weeks of tape on people because they came out the gate not knowing what to expect, you start to see the power struggle start to even out week 3 through 8, and then obviously the back end of the season, they already know who you are. So you can catch some people off guard in the first couple rounds here, but going into the mid rounds and late rounds, they're going to know how you're punching and counter punching, and then it's over for you. And I think the Jaguars are too young. I like them to build. Obviously, they got a lot of cap room for next year. They got draft capital for next year. So they got a lot of team. I just think that this year, they're playing hard. They're playing tough. I like what I'm seeing more out of the Dolphins. I'm going to take the Dolphins in this one. Jaguars, I think they're on the come if they can figure it out. I don't know if they have the right mixture yet, or they were just lucky the first 2 weeks playing well.
Well, they took the Titans to the brink there last week. They're 1-1. Dolphins 0-2, and I'm looking ahead, John, seeing that the Fins Up Nation Week 11 bye seems pretty ripe for a Tua Tagovailoa switcheroo. Considering they are 0-2, if they continue going that losing trend, do you see a Tua insertion here before over under Week 11?
Under, like could be now. I think they're going to get smashed. That was pitiful what you saw last week. I mean, I know Josh Allen, and Ralph will be hitting me up and telling me I'm nuts. But Josh Allen is not that guy just yet to go out and just destroy what you thought you had built defensively there in Miami. And I think the 3 things that I'm not sure that you're recovering from 1 week to the next on yet are you still can't run the ball. So Matt Breida might be good on the 4x100 team. He ain't really doing too much out of the backfield. Jordan Howard, you can't score from inside the 5 with that guy. Unfortunately, he's not what he was, early with Chicago. Now you do see some good things. The O-line, the younger guys, they're going to take a little while, but you see that they could become good football players, but they're not at the moment. And then you get Byron Jones down, and whether it's because you're playing a rookie guy on the outside who's more comfortable on the outside, I think Stephon Diggs just scored again. So Noah, and if you don't like saying Agbagbemiga, well, you certainly don't want to try saying Noah's last name too many times quickly. But I think we're going to see a lot of Noah and figure out his last name, because he's going to be hauling ass trying to chase down whoever he's covering tonight. So what if you're playing fantasy football, find out who's going opposite of him. If DJ Chark plays, dress him. But they have Chark, Shenault, Conley, Robinson. Oh, there's going to be a smash. There is going to be a smash. The Dolphins are going to get caught in that tuna net, and it ain't going to be pretty. Because I think that the things that you don't like there is 400 plus in the air. You're averaging 3 yards a carry. So, yeah, every once in a while, Fitzpatrick comes out with a game, and gives you that effort, where he throws for 350 and 3 scores. But the problem is, if you don't have a balanced attack, their O-line isn't ready for prime time yet, you're not getting any pressure, and your best 2 DBs, one is hurt, and the other one couldn't cover Buffalo's 3rd guy last week. It was a tie. So if Noah was not good, he's a rookie. What was Howard's excuse for being god-awful? And I think the one thing that I'm surprised at that you haven't seen out of Jacksonville so far, but maybe, it's coming or as a defensive, club, they're rounding into what they want to do. When you have Josh Allen and Chason, and Hamilton, I think they should be getting more pressure with the athletes they have up front. And they don't really give me anything, outside of the vanilla front 7. I don't really see anything there that's really exotic or, that would be too confusing. But I think that, their playmakers and the guys that they have are rounding into form a little bit quicker than what the Dolphins have. And I think they have way more weapons at the moment, than that. And the one thing that Minshew, all the joking aside, he is a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception, guy so far in his career, and we mentioned the guys that are doing that on the regular. It's Mahomes, it's Russell Wilson, and it's our guy Lamar Jackson, who's at 29-to-1, in his last 13 or 14 regular season games. And the one thing all that has in common is if you don't turn the ball over, you can run the ball a little bit, and you have a couple of playmakers that can make some plays. Even when DJ Shark is questionable, I think this is like a 30-to-14. I think this is not a good look, for the Dolphins. And going to Tua is going to come quickly because the L's are packing up there.
Not so fast, my friend.
There we go. There we go.
Corso. I will tell you this. John is 25-7 on NFL selections this year. I'm one game behind him, 24-8, and we are going to disagree on Thursday Night Football.
Oh, cool. So then you'll be 2 back.
So I'm going to get my money back on the Dolphins because I picked up 2 losses picking them the last 2 weeks, and I think Brian Flores, despite having 2 corners out of action, I think he's a great adjustable coach that will figure out a way here. Okay. Let's not.
What he's adjusting to is getting his ass kicked in Florida instead of winning games in Boston.
Well, I think Jacksonville is going to come back down to orbit. Jacksonville. Let's not forget this was the team that everybody said is the worst roster in the league, and they're going to play like it tonight because DJ Shark. Oh, my neck and my back. Oh, take him out of the equation. I don't see. I'm a big Laviska Shenault fan, so I do like Shenault, and I do like the undrafted kid out of Illinois State, Robinson. But let's be honest here. This is going to be an ugly, low-scoring affair. Do not underestimate the power of the beard under the lights in prime time. Okay, Ryan Fitzpatrick, to your point, does have some magic left. And I do think the Dolphins are going to claw their way through this matchup. It's going to be nasty, like 16-13, a really nasty game here. But I'm going to go with the Dolphins prevailing. John likes a blowout. I don't think Jacksonville can blow out anybody. Anybody. Jacksonville Jaguars ain't blowing out nobody. So I'm going to go Miami Dolphins with the W. John's going Jaguars. Did we get a prediction from David Turner?
Oh, I'm a Finn baby. Let's go. Let's get the Finns going because I think all he has to do, all Chris has to do is run some quarter halves, some backside triangles to trap some turnovers, and it's not hard. It's similar to the same defense we're seeing up in New England being played. You don't have to, you don't have to man up to get the pressure. You can play zone. You can do a lot of zone blitzing. The offensive line at the Jaguars won't know which way you're coming. And it's just a simple adjustment in my mind, in my eyes, what I've learned through the years of scouting, where if they run just some quarter half, sit at 15, react up, keep them in front of you. And again, if Shark's not playing, to me, there's not a lot of deep threat action going on anyways. So you can roll up your coverage that way and then then blitz some extra guys and rally to the ball to tackle. So, they saw issues last week. They had injuries last week. I think now they had a week to prepare. And again, like you said, it's Jacksonville. They don't have a Stephon Diggs, or if Shark doesn't play, they don't, to really threaten the Finns secondary. So get the pressure on the mustache through some zone blitzing. You'll be fine.
All right. Well, we'll be back to talk about it tomorrow. I'm interested now. I am interested in this matchup. And by the way, we broadcast on Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube. If you want to chime in with the questions, like our good friend Tony G, I know Tua came off the injury report, and there was some speculation that the team was scared of him getting hit. I don't know exactly what you're specifically referring to in the Palm Beach Post report. I'm here in New Jersey, so I don't read that paper. I tried to do a search. I didn't see it. But, again, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, Okay, you go find us on the All Access Football Network on YouTube, or you watch on the NFL Draft Bible page on Facebook. You can then chime in your question directly to the chat room. I do try to check the Twitter for the questions and comments. So we want to be interactive here. We want to take your questions. I miss the days of if you followed us on Blog Talk Radio of taking the live calls and all that. We'll figure it out one day. But the report is, he hasn't been tackled. You hear, the Dolphins, despite taking him off the injury report, are scared of him getting hit. John, do you take anything into this? I mean, the guy's coming off a significant injury. I'd have a red shirt on him until the week that I do name him the starter.
Yeah, I don't think there's a necessity, to say, what do you want him to get tackled? Okay, and does Washington want Alex Smith to get tackled? No. If there's no need for it or no use for it, you're not going to say, let's look at our investment. He's not getting treatment for any of the things related to that other than maintenance. So that explains why he's off, the injured report. Plus, it makes it be one less thing the coach has to answer every week, which is, why is your backup quarterback still on the injury report 12 months later? So if you can take him off and there's nothing wrong with that, it's a smart move as an organization. But I don't think you want to just, test drive seeing, how he'll respond to getting hit, because unfortunately we saw those hits, right? I mean, neither one of those was a penalty. None of the things that have injured Tua, in college football were hits that came after the whistle or were unsportsmanlike conduct or anything like that. If you play with that style, if you're going to take off and run and you're going to be on the move making those throws, you're going to be off balance sometimes and get shoved to the ground. If you fall on it awkwardly, something bad could happen. And that might happen never again, or it could happen with him. But I don't think you have to, kind of, simulate that and have me see him fall on the ground and hope he gets back up. Because if he's going to do that, at least I'm hoping it's on payday, not in practice. Allen Iverson's not showing up, but we're sure the hell not doing that stuff in practice, with my quarterback. And if you are, you're not coaching for my team anymore, because that's not a smart way to try to find out if Tua is healthy enough to go. You're trusting your team doctors that you drafted the kid. You're trusting what you saw in that video leading up to the draft. And now you're just waiting for the right time, to put him in the lineup. But you're not worried, I don't think, that he has or hasn't gotten hit. There wasn't a time to do it. And you're not going to set up a drill. This isn't high school. This isn't a freshman team where you're trying to weed out, the guys who want to get hit versus the guys that don't want to take that hit. So I don't think there's any way to, simulate, getting hit by a pass rusher or what's it going to be like if he's rolling out and throws the ball and gets shoved to the ground out of bounds, how he's going to respond. I think we should be more interested. If you're worried about getting hit by something, hey, make sure the television truck isn't running across the back of the end line when your players are still in play, because that was a pretty scary situation. And when you look at it now, not one but two Raiders actually got injured, on that play. One guy, got caught by the front of it, and John Abraham almost got run over by it.
And the amazing thing is, like, I think it was the ESPN broadcast, they kept showing it, but they didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like, how about we move it, guys?
Hey, the best thing, thank God.
Empty stadium. Hey, do you think we could maybe move it? Instead of pointing it out that you're screwing up these guys, like, hey, can we move it?
Hey, all I know is we're very fortunate that they did make an adjustment.
To McFarland on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, because he would have gotten catapulted. He would have fell on top of him.
What cracks me up is as much football we've all been involved in, right? When we have our trucks at camp or on our practice fields, we have pads over the truck. So we guard at practice the truck, so because we know it's got to be there to get the right angle, and you put a pad across it so if a player does run over, they smack the pad. They don't smack the truck.
Unbelievable.
And these guys are getting paid how much money to film the game? They can't afford to put a pad and pay for somebody just to move the pad as the truck moves. So we're protecting players. I mean, come on, just put the pad, move the pad. It's not a hard, heavy thing, but at least stops a player from going under a truck or getting hit with metal parts or wheels of a truck and getting injured and possibly costing them a season. Like, it's player protection 101, people. It's field management 101. It's not something that we don't do at all levels. I mean, in the Arena League on up where I've been, college football, everywhere I've seen, you just put the dang pad over the truck, and as it moves, you move the pad. It's simple, and they didn't do that. So, I just think, and going back to Tua entrance, I think you start looking at the weeks and maybe stretches of games where they could probably insert him. And I think, for them, if you look at the stretch of games coming up where they have maybe the Jets, bye week Jets, then Cincinnati, right there, that's a good stretch. So week 10, maybe, as early as week 9, I don't think you want them in before week 8 when Aaron Donald comes to town and you got to play the big AD. I think it could be right after that, though, where you see him get inserted, because by then he'll have enough practice time. He'll have enough possibilities of, maybe falling awkward in practice or something on it. And then, boom, what you got, and you put him in there, and you don't have a ton of pass rush, especially when you got the Jets, bye week Jets. I mean, that's a good stretch right there to say, okay, we put him in, see what he does. Pass rush against the Jets is okay, but it's not great. And then, bye week, come back, same team. So he sees the same team twice, can have some easy production there.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Dolphins roster because I was going to see. I'd be curious to see, with Tua coming off the injury report, how many players or how many quarterbacks they carry on the active man roster. They don't have anybody aside from Tua on the active roster. They've got our guy Ric Serritella from San Diego that was at the NFLPA Bowl on the practice squad, but it doesn't look like they're going to activate him and make him part of the game plan. So they're confident enough not to have any other quarterbacks on the active roster. Could we see Tua tonight? Who knows?
Jacksonville dresses Mike Glennon, so it's almost like they don't dress two backup quarterbacks. I would rather have the blank spot on the depth chart than be playing that guy.
Right. Throw LaVisca Chenault in there as the wildcat or something, All right. Parting shots. That's another hour of power. David Turner. I'm still trying to get caught up. I know you had a great roundtable podcast this past week. You've also got Friday Night Scout School coming up tomorrow night. What's the final thought you want to leave the people with here today?
If you're a parent of a high school athlete or you're a high school athlete yourself, I would tune into Mav Sports Takes podcast that we did yesterday. We released yesterday. We had James Kirkland from the University of Illinois, who's the player personnel director there. And we also had running back coach from Weber State, Quinton Ganther, who was a former NFL player. Both of them are big-time college players themselves. We had them on talking about the recruiting class for 2021 and how roster management is becoming such an important thing in college football through this COVID situation, and with the NCAA giving seniors back a year to be able to come back for another year. And it's really causing some log jams in high school recruiting for athletes. And we talked about football, but if you have a young lady who's being recruited in volleyball or softball, it might give you a picture into what they're going through as well, because with these players being able to come back for additional years, it's really causing some creativity for recruiting at the next level. So I encourage you to download the podcast. It's Mav Sports Take anywhere you can download, and feel free to come listen to it, because it was really informative with these two men coming on and sharing their time with us. Tomorrow night, if you're interested in learning what really a West Coast offense is or a vertical stretch offense is, join Ryan Roberts and myself at Friday Night Scout School, because we will be taking you through past concepts tomorrow night, setting up our conversations on how to grade offensive players coming up. But these are some of my favorite conversations, is to teach people these terms that you always hear, but you don't know what they really mean. You can buy it a la carte. You can buy the season pass. You can take advantage of getting on and asking experts. Wow, I can't get that word out. Questions live, because we do live chats as well. So join us. It's going to be great. Ryan Roberts and I are all pumped up to do Past Concepts tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's a great, educational seminar series that we've been doing at Friday Night Scout School. A lot of excitement for this one, diving into the passing concepts, and Ryan and David do a great job breaking it down. So log on to NFLDraftBible.com. Log on for that. Before we get to your parting shot, John, I saw a question come in from Alligator Feed 11. Thoughts on Isaiah Ford? Hey, this kid out of Virginia Tech, I know he got called up late in the season last year from the practice squad and has been heavily involved in the passing attack. If you're in a deep fantasy league, this might be a sneaky play. I think he had 7 for 76 last week. He's been targeted 44 times in his last 5 games, I believe, with 30 catches. Quietly emerging, we talked about Preston Williams, Isaiah Ford quietly emerging as a go-to option there for Ryan Fitzpatrick. So those are my thoughts on Isaiah Ford. I think is going to be an integral part of this offense moving forward. And every now and then you get a guy who slips through the cracks and makes a name for himself. And the Dolphins, despite all the draft picks they've had, they've done a pretty good job finding some street free agents there. So hats off to Chris Greer. I'll throw it over to John Murphy for his final take. And again, we'll be back 9 a.m. tomorrow. Make sure you lock it in on the State of Football.
Yeah, and if Ford will ever be up for a game, it'll be tonight because he's a Jacksonville native, so playing for the Dolphins against the Jaguars. And the one thing you have to say about Virginia Tech is, some of their last 10 years, their quarterback play, hasn't always been precise, and they've been more of a ground attack and a team that produces some tight ends and a lot of defensive players. But some of their late round and PFA type receivers, they get a lot of really high quality athletes who don't mind doing kind of the dirty work. And that allows, I think, guys like that, like Ford, to go into the NFL and come in as a late round or PFA type guy. If you're willing to block and you catch with your hands and you can play on teams, you have a shot to kind of stick around and make a practice roster and develop. Because if they know they don't have to ask you and teach you how to do the dirty work and the physical part, they'll kind of give you a little time to develop, as a pure receiver. Because if you can dress, that's half the battle. And I think that's what Ford has done for himself, is be competitive enough to get on the roster, and you go from being the 5th or 6th receiver to getting a shot. And I think, again, we're all about football, but we're also all about what we're seeing going on all over the place. And I think it will be very interesting to see tonight with the Jaguars and the Dolphins playing, and then through the weekend, how a number of the outspoken players respond and react to what we all saw yesterday. But on a bigger note, you have to still say, regardless to what you hear and see in terms of the response, to things that we're already dealing with, there can never be an okay to say the response should be to continue to attack, police officers, to continue, to attack people on the street, that are protesting or otherwise. I don't believe that that's stuff that the families would want to see. And I don't believe that that's a way to ever get real closure or real forward movement on this case in Louisville or any of the others. So, I think it's something that, hey, remember 60% of the population in the U.S. that was eligible to vote. That's all we got the last time. So if you really want to do something about it, be more outspoken, be more community-minded, get out and vote when the time comes to vote. But a lot of the videos and a lot of things you see, those aren't the people that are harming, those folks. Those aren't the people that are in your community doing harm to your community. And a lot of the kind of after effects, and the side effects and unfortunately the innocent victims in all this, start adding up. And it doesn't just become the Breonna Taylors. It doesn't just, become the names we hear. It starts becoming that person who now tries to rebuild their small business, in Louisville. It starts becoming those families of those officers that went out, to protect and serve last night and then, come home and find out they've been shot. And in some cases, even worse. I think we have to really do a better job. And that's why you have to applaud, teams' willingness to stand together or potentially, not play a football game or a basketball game, until we get better answers, because what we can't do is we can't see something that looks very black and white, no pun intended, and then have that be the only offense that's registered as a complaint afterwards, is basically protecting the neighbors and protecting the property and not protecting the life of that young lady. But then to have the response and the results of what we're seeing this morning, it's disheartening to see it happen again in Louisville. And it's disheartening to know that that's something we're all very much still dealing with. But I think it'll be very interesting, again, like I said, to see LeBron James mentioned that there was an actual meeting. So there was the potential that the NBA, could have had another game, that was missed or skipped, because of this. And it'll be very interesting to see, a lot of the outspokenness. The New Orleans Saints, will be playing the Packers on Sunday night. And one of the things the Saints programs that they got involved in was things exactly like this, for, women of color that have had issues and been, assaulted, and in this case killed, with little or no, response and reaction to it. And it'll be very interesting to see how Malcolm Jenkins and others around the league respond to it. But as a whole, it's very disheartening to turn on the news, and see that once again, as, if we continue to respond that way, like I've always said, it'll end up on your doorstep if you don't do anything about it.
That's a hell of a parting shot here on the State of Football. Obviously, very disturbing images to be waking up to and viewing even throughout last night. And yeah, it is being felt in Louisville. It's reverberating around the country, and we hope that you'd be smart. You take proactive action and do something that's contributing to the cause, and not shooting officers, burning down small businesses. And, I just don't think that is the solution that we need. Murphy said it best. So we will be back again tomorrow, Friday, 9 a.m. Buckle up, everybody.